A lantern sways above a frozen street, its flame tucked inside curved glass like a living heart cradled in winter's hand. The iron hook creaks softly, moving in rhythm with the breath of the night, and the snow beneath it glows faintly gold, scattered in ripples across uneven cobblestones. Somewhere, beyond the bend of an alleyway, a wooden door clicks shut with a sound so small it vanishes almost immediately, swallowed by the quiet. And for a moment, nothing stirs. No voices, no horses, no distant bells. Just the pause between heartbeats, the hush between centuries, as if the city itself is holding its breath. The snow does not fall as much as it lingers hovering meter before deciding gently, silently, where to land. It drapes itself over rooftops with the patience of memory, seeps into the crevices between shutters and bricks, and muffles the world below like a mother, drawing a blanket over a sleeping child. Each flake carries within it a weightless calm, and as they gather, layer upon layer, the city's hard edges soften into a kind of dream. Footprints vanish, roofs blur. Time begins to forget its shape. The wind, though stilled, has left behind its traces threads of chill that wind around eaves and chimney smoke like ghostly hands. It hides in corners, sneaks under doors, and tugs gently at candle flames, not to extinguish them, but simply to say, I was here, and now I've gone. Somewhere, the last sound of a horse's hooves fades into nothing, and in its place rises a silence so deep, it feels like a sound in itself. The kind of silence that hums in your ears, that brushes against your skin, that reminds you that you are not alone. Tonight, Boston is not a city of revolt or revolution. It is not a stage for gunpowder or flags or declarations. Tonight, it is something more intimate, more ordinary, and perhaps more enduring. It is a city with its shutters closed, its taverns dimmed, its people curled beneath quilts and dreams. The firewood has burned low. The hearths are whispering their last warmth into the floorboards. And somewhere beneath it all, beneath the snow, beneath the silence, the city sleeps. And you've arrived at just the right moment. Not as a historian, flipping through facts and footnotes, but as a silent guest, slipping between the shadows of time. You won't knock on doors or light a lantern. You'll simply listen. Watch. Let your breath slow to match the rhythm of a night long vanished, but never quite gone. Your presence here is quiet, but not unnoticed. The past remembers those who visit with care. If you've found yourself drawn to this gentle unfolding, if the hush of snow and the flicker of lantern light speak to something in you, you may have already stepped into something more than a story. Perhaps you've been here before, in another winter, in another quiet life. If this kind of night feels like home to you, then you are most welcome here. There is room by the fire, a place to rest your thoughts. Should you feel moved to leave a trace of your visit something soft and simple, like a footprint in the snow, you might offer a word below in the comments, or gently warm the flame with a like. And if you'd like to return, to step back into these old streets again, when the world outside grows loud, know that you can. You need only subscribe, and this door will remain open to you. What we build here is not simply a channel, or a video, or a single voice echoing into the dark. It is a gathering of quiet souls, a shared walk through forgotten places. Each one who joins adds warmth to the light, and every story becomes richer when shared with others. If someone you know might need this kind of stillness, this kind of night, you are always welcome to invite them, to bring them into the hush. Let your shoulders drop. Let your thoughts untangle, like thread unwinding slowly in a beam of candlelight. There is no urgency here, no need to hurry toward meaning. History will unfold in its own time, like frost melting on a window pane. And all you must do is be present, to breathe, to listen, to walk slowly beside me into the dark. Boston, 1772. The air is cold and still. The streets are hushed beneath a blanket of snow, and something ancient sleeps beneath the surface of things. A city waiting, a secret held in ice. And you have come to witness it. So wrap your coat a little tighter. Listen to the creak of the lantern above your head. And when you are ready, take your first step. Let's begin. The snow had been falling since twilight, soft and slow, blanketing the narrow streets of colonial Boston in a thick, undisturbed white. The rooftops bowed gently beneath its weight, and chimneys exhaled long trails of smoke that drifted sideways through the night air. Each house seemed tucked into itself, windows glowing faintly behind frost-laced glass, doorsteps erased by the snow's quiet insistence. You walk slowly through this frozen world, and with each step the sounds of the day grow more distant. The city has hushed itself completely, as if the snow were not merely a storm, but a spell. The light in Boston tonight does not come from stars, for the sky is too heavy to show them. It comes instead from the lanterns, hundreds of them, flickering behind rippled panes and swinging from soot-darkened brackets along the streets. Their glow is soft, golden, uneven, like fire trapped in honey. Some burn clean, others sputter, but altogether they hold back the dark, just enough for the city to remain visible in outline, in suggestion. They do not blind the night, they soothe it. The scent of whale oil hangs in the air, a dense, familiar aroma that mingles with the smokiness of hearths and the damp musk of wet stone. It's an old smell, a city's breath in winter, and you take it in like a memory. Your boots creak faintly as you step across uneven cobblestones, half hidden now beneath the snow. In the stillness, the sound of your movement feels louder than it is, each step a soft intrusion, a presence acknowledged by the wind. To your left, a narrow alley opens like a crack between buildings. A cat darts across it, pale and quick, its paws barely touching the snow before vanishing again into shadow. Above the alley, a single lantern swings, its chain squealing quietly, casting a halo of light on a shuttered window. Someone once sang there, you imagine, leaning out on summer nights to listen for carriages. Now, only the wind stirs. You pause beneath a post where two lanterns hang, their flames burning with unequal strength. One glows brightly, casting long shadows across the front of a printer's shop. The other flickers weakly, its wick nearly drowned in oil, the light inside gasping. Still, it holds on. The shadows they cast fall across a wooden sign carved with a name, R. Blake, Broadside and News. The paint is chipped, but the letters remain. You run your eyes over them, as if they were still hot from the press. Beyond the shop, the street bends slightly, and the buildings lean closer to one another, as if sharing warmth. Here, the lanterns are fewer, and their light barely touches the snow. Yet the dark is not frightening. It is velvet soft, textured, alive with subtle movement. You feel the presence of the city not through sight, but through sound. And scent, through the small resistances of wind against fabric, through the way the cold curls into the spaces between your fingers. A tavern sign creaks on its hinge, swaying gently in the wind. It bears the image of a pewter tankard, painted in thick strokes dulled by frost. The door below it is closed tight, but a thin line of orange light glows beneath. Laughter once echoed through that door, tankards clinked, secrets whispered. Now only the lantern above it speaks, humming in rhythm with the wind, casting a patch of warmth onto the snow-covered stoop. You pass beneath the high eaves of a church, its spire lost in mist. The bell will not ring until morning, but the tower stands watchful, guardian-like. Icicles hang from the wooden frame of the entryway, long and glistening like the teeth of winter. The snow here is deeper, undisturbed, except for the prints of a small bird three-toed tracks that vanish beneath a pewter lamplight. A candle flickers faintly through the stained glass window, blue and gold behind frost. Farther down the street, a small courtyard opens like a secret held close. Its gate is iron, curled into vines, and the snow within lies untouched. A bench sits beneath a skeletal tree, its limbs bare, but for the frost that coats them like sugar. On the bench, someone has left a child's bonnet wool, hand-stitched, half-covered in snow. You stare at it, wondering if the mother noticed when it slipped from her arms, or if the child cried softly all the way home. A watchman rounds the corner, his lantern held low. You see his shadow before you see him tall, stretched, wavering across the white street, like a memory being drawn back into focus. His footsteps are steady, boots thudding lightly, cloak trailing just above the snow. He nods as he passes, without words. His presence is reassuring, ancient, as if you are not walking for safety, but for rhythm, to remind the sleeping houses that they are not forgotten. The lanterns continue. They line the road like glowing sentinels, each one burning with the conviction of those who lit them. You imagine the hands that tended these flames, the oil poured, the wicks trimmed, the glass wiped clean. There is care in this light, not automation. Each glow feels personal. A gesture made toward the city, not from it. A promise to keep watching, even when most have closed their eyes. On a windowsill above, behind fogged glass, a figure watches. Perhaps a mother nursing her child. Perhaps an old man drinking tea from a chipped mug, the steam rising into candlelight. You cannot see clearly, but the feeling is there's someone watching you as you pass. Not with suspicion, but with a quiet human curiosity. The lantern nearest to their window burns a little brighter, as if in greeting. You reach a bridge, low and narrow, with stone arches crusted in ice. Beneath it, a shallow stream trickles faintly, not yet frozen completely. The lanterns cast their glow onto the water, breaking it into gold and black fragments. You rest your hands on the cold railing, breathing in the stillness. Somewhere far off, a carriage wheel creaks, followed by the muted clop of hooves. You do not turn to look. The sound belongs to another part of the night, and this one is yours. As you step down from the bridge, a gust of wind lifts a curtain of snowflakes into your path, and you pause beneath another lamp, this one nearly out. The flame flutters with each breath of wind, but it survives, dancing low in its glass cage. You watch it for a long moment. It is not strong, but it is not gone, and in its trembling light, you continue forward. The shadows stretch and shift behind you as you walk, but they do not follow. They remain with the lanterns, with the doors and windows, with the silence that thickens between each heartbeat. You feel no fear, only quiet, only presence, only the knowledge that even in the coldest dark, the light remains and the city remembers. Inside the wooden homes of colonial Boston, where floors creak with memory and the walls seem to inhale and exhale with the changing seasons, the night presses close. The warmth of the day has long departed, fleeing with the last sunlight that vanished behind snow-laden roofs. Now, the hearth holds what little heat remains, its embers glowing like watchful eyes in the dark, pulsing faintly in a bed of gray ash. Flames no longer dance, but the coals hum softly, their quiet glow casting long shadows that stretch across the uneven wooden planks like sleepy ghosts. Kitchens that once bustled with motion are now still, their stories paused until morning. Iron pots rest idle, blackened and worn smooth from years of meals. The lingering scent of the evening's broth-root vegetables, salted meat, and dried herbs boiled together over hours hangs in the rafters, like a memory you can almost taste. The steam is gone, but the essence remains, clinging to the hearthstones and the low-beamed ceilings, a soft reminder that even in scarcity, something warm once filled these rooms. The hearth was never just for cooking. It was the pulse of every home, the place where silence met fire, where the day's end gathered itself into flickering light. Children once sat nearby, bare feet stretched toward the warmth, cheeks ruddy from cold and soup, listening as mothers hummed or told stories, passed down like heirlooms. Now, those children sleep in lofts or by the wall, wrapped in quilts thick with patches. And memory, while the hearth watches on, its light fading into a quiet amber hush. One can feel the heaviness of winter inside these walls. Even with fire, the chill seeps in through the floorboards, through the corners, through the tiny gaps in the shutters that the wind finds with uncanny precision. It whistles low and slow, like a lullaby sung by something ancient and uncaring. Boots by the door are stiff with cold. Mittens hang by a nail, dripping slowly into a dented tin pail beneath. A chair creaks in the dark, settling its bones after a long day, and the house itself seems to sigh, content to rest. In a corner, a cat curls tighter on a woven rug, its fur carrying the scent of smoke and bread and wool. Its paws twitch in sleep, chasing some phantom in a dream. It is one of the few beings in this city who understands the rhythm of firelight, the language of crackles and sighs, the steady heartbeat of ember and ash. Its trust in the warmth is complete, even as it fades. Not far away, a man sits at the hearth alone, sipping the last of a thin beer brewed 2 months too early. His thoughts drift with the smoke that curls from his pipe, rising into the rafters like prayers that never found the right words. Hunger crouches nearby, not in the belly this time, but in the heart, a longing for what he cannot name, for something beyond fire and bread, beyond coin and obligation. The hearth offers no answers, only its silence. In smaller homes, the hearth has already gone cold. The last splinter of wood was burned at dusk, and now fingers rub together for friction. Children sleep two to a bed for warmth, and a mother's thoughts are on tomorrow. How to make one onion feed 4 mouths, how to stretch cornmeal into comfort. Hunger here is not dramatic. It is intimate, domestic. It arrives quietly and stays politely, like a neighbor who never leaves. Some families have 1 candle left for the week. It flickers on a simple table, illuminating rough hands and weathered faces. The fire has died, but the flame remains, tiny and stubborn. A father tells a story he's told before, not because they don't remember it, but because its telling is comfort. The cadence is familiar. The endings are soft. They are not trying to forget hunger tonight, only to make peace with it. In the homes of the wealthier, the hearths blaze like little suns. Thick logs crackle, golden light spilling onto rugs imported from abroad. A maid stokes the flames with practiced grace, while a lady sits beside her embroidery hoop, stitching by firelight, her face warm, her fingers steady. In these rooms, the hunger is subtler, wrapped in satin and silence. It is the hunger for distraction, for conversation, for companionship, unburdened by expectations. A boy in such a house presses his nose to the cold window pane, watching the snow drift down outside, wondering what it's like to be on the street at this hour. His pockets are full, his belly too, but something gnaws at him still, a curiosity perhaps, or a yearning he cannot articulate. He feels the heat at his back and the cold at his face, and does not know which one he prefers. In a cabin on the city's edge, a woman kneels beside the hearth, hands red from scrubbing and carrying, brushing ash back into place as though it were sacred. She hums a song older than the town itself, one her grandmother sang when tending coals, a melody that matches the rhythm of her own breath. The hearth doesn't speak, but she feels its quiet approval. In the shadows, her children sleep near each other, their dreams sharing warmth words never could. A young couple, newly married, sits close to the fireplace in a small upstairs room, knees touching, hands tangled, eyes reflecting flame. They speak in whispers, not for secrecy, but reverence. The fire is a witness to their quiet joy, to the comfort found in closeness. Hunger doesn't visit this room tonight, except as memory, distant and fading, softened by laughter and the rhythm of 2 hearts learning to share the same space. In another house, a widow sits alone with her knitting, the needles clicking gently like raindrops on a windowsill. She's added another row to the shawl for her neighbor's baby. The hearth, though small, burns steadily. She has learned to live with less wood, less bread, less conversation, but she guards what warmth she has with fierce tenderness. The room smells of pine smoke and lavender. She doesn't speak, but her presence fills the space. Sometimes, the hearth carries stories, not told, but felt in the way the fire flares when a door opens, or how a sudden draft makes the coals dance. It remembers arguments, kisses, confessions made in passing, hopes whispered into rising smoke. It holds them all quietly. And if you sit still long enough, you might hear them too. And you, as you listen now, far away and yet close through the folds of time, can feel the heart's warmth too. You are a visitor to these rooms, a silent guest who brings no burden. The coals welcome you. The night does not mind your presence. You may linger as long as you wish, before we rise again and continue deeper into the dreaming city. The streets outside have long settled into silence, blanketed beneath a thick layer of snow that softens every footstep and muffles every sound. But inside a narrow brick building tucked away on Queen Street, a small window flickers with a stubborn light, the golden glow of a candle struggling against the dark. This light spills faintly into the cold night air, a lone beacon in a sea of shadow. Within, the printer leans close to his workbench, fingers stained with ink and calloused from years of shaping words that will outlive him. The press itself is an imposing machine, a relic of wood and iron that creaks and groans under the weight of the printed page. Its arms move slowly, with deliberate force, each press a labor of care and precision. The printer's eyes are sharp despite the late hour, tracing the raised letters of a freshly printed sheet, checking for smudges or imperfections, as if he were reading the heartbeat of the city itself. The scent of ink, sharp and slightly acrid, mingles with the warm wax of the candle, filling the room with a heady perfume of creation. Around him, trays of metal type lay scattered, each tiny block a letter cast by hand, a symbol painstakingly formed to capture sound and meaning. Arranging these blocks is a ritual that demands patience and focus. The printer's fingers move with practiced grace, slotting each letter into place like pieces of a complex puzzle. The faint clinking of metal is the only soundtrack to the night, broken only by the soft crackle of melting wax dripping steadily onto the wooden desk. The candle burns low, its flame dancing in the drafts that slip through the cracks of the weathered window frame. The wax pools in irregular rivulets, the sticky residue glinting like captured starlight. The printer shields the flame with a scrap of parchment, careful not to let it flicker out. Without this fragile glow, his work would cease, and the city would wake to find its voice missing. Stacks of paper are piled high on a nearby shelf, rough sheets of linen pulp, pressed and dried by hand, waiting to carry the stories that might change minds or stir hearts. Some pages are smudged and warped from hastened use, others crisp and pristine like promises yet to be fulfilled. The printer treasures each sheet, aware that this humble medium is the thread connecting past to future, idea to reader. The hours stretch and fold like the inked sheets that pile beside him. Time becomes malleable in the candle's glow. Minutes blur into moments, moments into hours, until the outside world fades into a distant murmur. The printer's breath fogs the air as he leans closer to align a line of type, the metal cold and unforgiving beneath his fingertips. He presses down with care, the lever moving with a reluctant creak that fills the room with a rhythmic thrum. His thoughts wander briefly, memories of days past, when this city pulsed with newness, when ideas burned bright and words spilled like wildfire from eager tongues. Now, in the stillness of winter night, the press is a solitary companion, a witness to the quiet persistence of hope. The printer knows his labor is small, but necessary. These pages are more than words. They are sparks in the dark. On a shelf, a well-thumbed book of Voltaire sits open, its margins crowded with penciled notes and underlined passages. Next to it rests a printed sermon, its pages folded and dog-eared from frequent reading. The printer contemplates these works, neither fully embraced nor rejected, but both essential to the tapestry of thought he helps weave. His fingers linger on a line, recalling debates held over tavern tables and whispered in candlelit rooms. Suddenly, a mouse scurries beneath the desk, its tiny feet pattering softly across crumpled drafts and rejected proofs. The printer watches briefly, amused by the creature's persistence. Even in this quiet, life finds a way to press forward through cracks, beneath floors, in the smallest of movements. He smiles to himself, a brief warmth amid the cold night. He takes a sip from a pewter mug, the bitter taste of coffee grounding him as his eyes grow heavy. The candle flickers in response, shadows wavering on the walls like restless spirits. Outside, a lantern sways past the window, casting elongated shadows that stretch and shrink with every step. For a moment, the printer wonders about the lives passing in the dark streets, unaware of the words forming quietly just beyond their doors. The typesetting nears completion. The printer aligns the final letters, his hands steady despite the fatigue settling into his bones. Each letter is a carefully chosen voice in the growing chorus of dissent and hope, a testimony to a city poised on the edge of change. He knows that tomorrow, these printed sheets may find their way into hands hungry for news, for truth, for something to hold on to. The candle's flame dips low, the wax melting into a thick pool that threatens to swallow the wick. The printer shields it once more, refusing to surrender the precious light. The room feels alive with quiet anticipation, as if the words themselves await their moment to leap from paper into the minds of readers. A distant bell tolls soft, slow marking the passage of another hour. The printer doesn't count. Time has lost its usual shape here, in this cocoon of ink and wax. His world is this small room, this press, this candlelight, this act of creation amidst the cold and silence. He pulls the press's lever one last time. The groan of iron fills the space, yielding a single sheet of freshly inked paper. The printer holds it up to the candle, examining each raised letter, each dark stroke, as if greeting an old friend. The print is imperfect, marked by smudges and slight misalignments, but it is alive with intention and care. It is enough. The candle flickers, stutters, and breathes a final sigh before the flame is swallowed by darkness. The room falls silent, save for the whisper of paper settling and the steady beat of a heart devoted to words. The snow presses gently, almost reverently, against the window pane, each flake settling as if bearing a silent message from the frozen sky. It gathers in fragile, trembling clusters, thickening the glass with an opaque veil of frost and ice crystals that catch the muted glow of distant lanterns, scattering it like tiny, fractured stars. Outside, the world disappears beneath this soft shroud, transforming cobblestones, wooden shutters, and iron street lamps into mere whispers beneath blankets of white. The night is so still that even the faintest sound a creak of settling wood, the distant scrape of a sled feels magnified, a fragile thread in the vast quiet. Inside, the warmth pushes back the cold, pooling unevenly across rooms with low ceilings and heavy timber beams. Thick curtains of faded wool hang heavy over the windows, their fabric dense enough to blunt the bite of winter's breath, but thin enough to let the faintest silhouette of snow's advance show through. The scent of burning pine drifts from the hearth, its smoke coiling lazily into the darkened rafters, mingling with the lingering aroma of herbal tea steeping in a chipped earthenware cup. Each breath taken inside is warmer, heavier, carrying a calm invitation to slow, to settle, to linger. The window pane bears the imprint of many fingers, tracing absent-minded shapes on the fogged gloss a circle, a line, a tentative heart fading slowly as cold steals the moisture away. The condensation serves as a fragile bridge between inside and out, a tactile reminder of the invisible barrier that separates the cozy refuge from the endless expanse of snow and night beyond. Every exhale meets the glass, leaving fleeting patterns that dance and dissolve like ephemeral art, each one a whisper of presence in the vast cold. Outside, the snow's descent is tireless but gentle, each flake unique and fleeting, falling with the patience of time itself. They drift in lazy spirals and sudden flurries, transforming the familiar into the unknowable. Lanterns, hung low on iron brackets, cast pools of amber light that ripple in the swirling snow, blurring edges and softening the harsh angles of the city's architecture. Shadows play among the flakes, folding and unfolding as the wind carries them down deserted streets, ghostly and mesmerizing. Within the walls, the fire's glow pulses softly, its orange light painting the room in warm hues that shift with the flicker of flame. The crackle of wood and the occasional pop of sap bursting add a layer of sound to the stillness, a comforting heartbeat that steadies the senses. Quilts, worn with years of use, are draped across laps and shoulders, their faded patterns telling silent stories of generations who have weathered winters just like this one. Every thread in those fabrics holds a fragment of hope, resilience, and quiet endurance. A pair of hands wraps a knitted shawl more tightly around a slender frame, fingers tracing familiar loops and stitches. The touch is both practical and tender, a small act of defense against the cold that seeps not just through the windows, but into bones and memories. The shawl smells faintly of lavender and smoke, a combination that calms as much as it wounds. Nearby, a mother rocks a cradle with slow, measured motions, humming a lullaby that seems as old as the town itself. The snow outside muffles the world, but inside, life continues with its own soft rhythm. Frost creeps along the edges of the glass like slow-moving lacework, intricate and delicate, each ice crystal a tiny marvel of nature's artistry. It spreads imperceptibly, inch by inch, turning the window into a canvas of shimmering white filigree. When the light catches it just so, the frost sparkles as if embedded with tiny diamonds, catching the eye and inviting closer inspection. The cold seems to hold its breath in this moment of fragile beauty. Beyond the glass, the silence of the snow-covered streets is profound. No carriage wheels clatter here. No footsteps break the hush. Occasionally, the distant bark of a dog or the faint whistle of wind echoes faintly, reminders that life persists in shadowed corners. The snow absorbs sound, wrapping the city in a cloak of quiet, so thick it almost feels tangible, like a living thing that presses gently against the skin. Within the room, a small fire crackles in the hearth, its amber glow flickering over faces worn by the day's labors. The flickering light casts long, soft shadows on wooden walls scarred with age and use. The warmth wraps around those present like a gentle hand, soothing muscles tightened by cold and worry. The scent of pine and ash lingers in the air, mingling with the faint trace of smoked meat and stale bread remnants of a meager evening meal. A child stirs beneath a pile of blankets, turning slightly with a sleepy sigh, the faintest smile touching lips as dreams take hold. Outside, the snow thickens, piling higher against window ledges and door frames, a slow but inexorable accumulation that transforms the familiar into a secret place. The child's small fingers twitch in sleep, reaching for something unseen, something warm and safe. The night wears on, and the snow continues its silent work, building and blanketing, erasing the edges of the city one flake at a time. The candle by the window burns steadily, its flame a steadfast sentinel against the cold and dark. It casts a halo of light that seems almost sacred in its softness, a promise that warmth and hope endure even in the harshest of winters. The cold does not just reside outside. It lives in memories too, in the ache of loss, in the sharp pangs of absence, in the quiet moments when loneliness creeps in unbidden. But here, by the fire and behind the frosted glass, those sorrows are softened. wrapped in the comfort of familiar rituals and the unspoken bond between those who share this shelter. Every crack in the window frame, every tiny draft that slips in unnoticed, tells a story of survival. The house itself seems to breathe, expanding and contracting with the heat and cold, a living organism woven from wood and stone and human hope. It holds its inhabitants close, guarding them against the relentless winter with a patient, enduring strength. Outside, the snow falls still, infinite in its delicacy and power, reshaping the world in silence. Inside, the night is rich with texture, the soft rustle of fabric, the low murmur of whispered conversations, the gentle scrape of a chair pulled closer to the hearth. Each sound, each sensation, folds into the next, creating a tapestry of presence and peace amid the storm. As the hours stretch toward dawn, the snow continues to press against the window pane, a tender but unyielding presence. It reminds all within of the boundary between storm and sanctuary, between wildness and warmth. And as the city sleeps beneath its white shroud, you remain here too part of this quiet vigil, a witness to the night's gentle endurance. He walks alone beneath the swollen sky, boots crunching softly through the freshly fallen snow, his breath rising in short clouds that vanish almost as quickly as they form. The watchman's steps are deliberate, neither hurried nor lazy, as though moving in time with a rhythm that only he can hear, a rhythm older than clocks, older than the town itself. In one hand, he carries a staff, smooth from years of use, and in the other, a lantern that sways with his gait, casting narrow bands of gold across the icy ground. His silhouette stretches and shrinks along the crooked brick walls, folding in and out of alcoves like a flickering shadow puppet. He wears a coat too thin for the weather, patched and long, cinched tight at the waist with a worn leather belt. Beneath his tricorn hat, tufts of gray hair curl on his neck, and his face is creased not just by age, but by long winters like this one, endured in solitude. His eyes, half-lidded and weatherwise, scan the quiet street not for threats, but for shifts, for small changes in silence that might mean a door left ajar, a window rattled loose, a whisper that should not be there. He is not a soldier, nor a constable, but something older, a presence rather than an enforcer, an assurance that while the city sleeps, someone walks the edges of its dreams. The bell at the meeting house has long since struck midnight, its last chime echoing like a ripple across the rooftops, startling a crow from its perch before vanishing into stillness. That chime marked his passage from evening into true night, from the lingering heat of hearths to the chilled silence where even dogs no longer bark. With each hour that passes, he will murmur the time aloud, 1 o'clock, and all is well. A ritual not for himself, but for the city that cannot hear him, and the people who sleep too deeply to care. Still, he speaks it, like a prayer into the frost. Each window he passes tells a different story. Behind one, faint candlelight flickers still, the shadow of someone reading or mending or lost in silent thought. Behind another, nothing moves, but the heavy shape of curtains suggests layers of warmth and sleep. Occasionally, he hears a creak from within, the shifting of someone in bed or the low groan of beams adjusting to the cold. These small noises reassure him. The city breathes, slowly, like a slumbering animal curled beneath its blanket of snow. There are places in the town where even he walks faster, where the cold seems to bite more deeply and the wind speaks in sharper tones. Narrow alleys where the light of his lantern barely holds, and the shadows press in close like listening spirits. Old corners where bricks crumble and doors sag on rusted hinges, places where rumors linger like smoke. In these pockets of the city, he does not tarry. He touches the edge of his hat, mutters beneath his breath, and keeps walking. Some silences are heavier than others. His route never truly changes, only drifts subtly with the season, with where snow has drifted too deep, or ice has claimed the stairs, or wind has pushed open a shutter. The map lives in his body, more than his mind, traced into his joints and muscles through repetition. He could walk it blind, and sometimes he nearly does, closing his eyes for a few steps to feel the rhythm beneath his soles. Each street has a name, but to him they are marked by memory. The corner where a child once waved from a window, the stoop where a man died in the frost, the lantern post where a cat always waits in warmer months. The lantern he carries is small but steady. Its glass is scratched and cloudy, and the oil burns low, but it holds its flame like a secret. The light it casts is warm but narrow, creating a circle around him that moves with each step, swallowing and revealing the world in alternating pulses. In this light, he becomes something in between, neither part of the world that sleeps, nor part of the darkness that surrounds it. He exists in the in-between, the liminal space between night and morning, between silence and warning. Sometimes he stops and listens, not for anything in particular, but simply to remind himself he is not alone in the night. He hears the groan of a shutter swinging loose, the hush of snow sloughing from a rooftop, the distant, rhythmic drip of melting ice somewhere in the eaves. These are his companions, small sounds, incidental and benign, that assure him the night is whole. And if he hears something else, a cry, a clash, a sob behind a shutter, he does not rush. He walks steadily toward it, staff in hand, lantern lifted, like a question drawn in flame. He once had a name that people used often, a voice that called back in conversation, laughter that answered his own. But now he is mostly the Watch, the Nightman, or simply him, spoken of by children in half-wonder and by adults in half-dismissal. He carries these names like layers of wool beneath his coat. They keep him warm in ways even the fire cannot. He does not mind. The night is full of forgotten things, words, wishes, even people, and he counts it a privilege to walk among them. A small group of cats emerges near the baker's shop, their fur fluffed against the cold, eyes gleaming in the lantern's light. They follow him a few paces, watching, assessing, before melting back into the shadows. He nods at them in passing. These creatures know the night better than he ever could, their paths secret and silent, their logic their own. He envies them a little their freedom, their invisibility, but he carries his own dignity in his stride, a pride earned from years of walking the city while others sleep. Some doors are marked in chalk, faint circles or lines drawn at dusk by those who believe it wards off evil. He sees them, nods quietly, and continues. These marks are not for him, but he respects the gestures. The night invites stories, and stories invite symbols. A door marked with care is a door loved by someone, and that alone is worth noting. He passes with reverence, not skepticism. At the harbor's edge, the wind is sharp enough to sting, blowing salt and snow in equal measure. The ships rock gently in the tide, their masts creaking like old trees, their ropes sighing with strain. He pauses here longest, watching the dark water slap against the dock, imagining all the places beyond the bay. The lantern's reflection dances across the waves, then vanishes with a gust. Still, he holds it high, as though lighting the way for any lost soul seeking shore. When he turns back toward the heart of the city, the rooftops shimmer faintly under the moonlight. Snow coats everything in a hush. It feels absolute, untouched. He knows, of course, that the world beneath this layer is messy and loud and human. But tonight, in this hour, it is beautiful. He savors it, lets the beauty settle into his bones alongside the cold, carried his memory and purpose both. As the first hint of dawn whispers on the horizon, not light, not yet, but the subtle thinning of night, he rounds the final corner of his route. He does not stop, not yet, but he allows his breath to slow, his steps to grow heavier. He has done what he was meant to do. The watch is not about what happens, but what doesn't. Nothing stirred tonight. That is his quiet triumph. He passes beneath a window where, far above, a candle flickers to life. A sleepless soul, or an early riser. He doesn't know, and he doesn't need to. The city is beginning to wake, and he, faithful as ever, will vanish into the snow-dusted silence, leaving behind only footprints and the faintest echo of his call. 3 o'clock, and all is well. In a narrow, dimly lit room nestled above the cobbler's workshop, a woman sits alone, her back slightly hunched over a simple wooden desk, scarred by years of ink spills and scratched initials. The candle beside her flickers weakly, its wax pooling in thick rivulets as the flame battles against drafts, sneaking through cracks in the shuttered window. Her fingers, stained faintly with blue-black ink, tremble slightly as they grip the slender quill. Hovering over a sheet of coarse parchment, it bears the marks of repeated erasures and anxious starts. The silence around her is dense but not empty. It hums softly with the weight of words unspoken, thoughts too tender to speak aloud, and stories trapped within the fiber of the paper. She does not write for an audience. There is no hope that this letter will be read, no expectation that the words will cross the distance to their intended recipient. The act of writing itself is her confession, her release, a whispered prayer to the cold night. The drawer next to her desk is crammed with countless folded letters, each one worn thin from careful folding, and unfolding, their edges yellowed with time and scented faintly with lavender, rose water, or the faint smokiness of burning pine. These letters share a common thread, each one addressed to the same name, penned in a looping, elegant script that wavers only when her heart falters. Through the frosted window pane, she watches the pale light of the moon mingle with the flickering glow of distant street lamps, their amber halos blurred by the thickening snow that falls steadily outside. Occasionally, a shadow passes beneath, perhaps a watchman on his lonely rounds, or a figure hastening home against the biting cold. The sight offers a fragile comfort proof that life moves on beneath the winter's hush, and that she is not entirely alone in this city of whispers and secrets. Still, she returns her gaze to the page, coaxing words out of the depths where they hide, willing them to take shape despite the heaviness that threatens to smother them. Tonight's letter is gentler than most. It does not demand or plead, but instead offers quiet observations and soft reflections. She writes of the snow's early arrival this year, how it fell before the herbs in her small garden could be harvested, how the quiet blanket softened even the harshest edges of the city. She tells of the silence in the narrow alleyways at dawn, of milk frozen thick in pails left outside doorsteps, and wonders if he still rises early, if he still drinks his tea with sugar as he once did. The details are mundane, perhaps, but to her, they form a fragile bridge spanning the gulf between absence and memory. There are letters born of anger, their ink pressed hard into the parchment, as if the words themselves could sever ties and wounds alike. Others drip with sorrow, so soaked in regret that the paper seems weighed down by their heavy burden. But this one is different. It is a breath held in stillness, a soft sigh escaping into the cold night. It carries the scent of frost on window panes, the warmth of a fire burning low in a distant hearth, and the faint, comforting touch of a hand long since gone. Across the city, she knows other souls are engaged in similar acts of quiet desperation, folding longing into letters never sent, locking their voices in ink and paper. Somewhere, a man scribbles hurried words by candlelight and hides them beneath floorboards. A child struggles with spelling, to write to a father lost at sea. Each letter a small act of hope. A widow addresses envelopes to her departed spouse, sealing them with trembling fingers before laying them upon the mantelpiece like offerings to a silent altar. The city breathes in these unsent words, in the aching spaces between communication and silence. Below her window, the alley is a quiet world of its own, more intimate than the wide streets, wrapped in shadow and mystery. Letters, sometimes discarded and sometimes deliberately abandoned, flutter there, caught by wind, or wedged between stones bearing secrets no one is ready to hear. Rain and snow soak into their fragile fibers, blurring ink and intentions alike, while the restless wind carries fragments of longing across the cobblestones like scattered music notes without melody. She wonders often what fate might befall her own letters if they were ever found. Would someone read aloud the secrets tucked between lines, the raw edges of heartache and hope laid bare? Would they understand the depth of silence that accompanies words unsent, or dismiss them as mere scraps of forgotten sorrow? The thought is both terrifying and strangely comforting, a testament to the power these letters hold, even in their stillness. In her dreams, she imagines a different world, one where courage triumphs over fear, and the letters find their way into waiting hands. She pictures her words carried beneath a tree's shade, shared in dimly lit taverns, or whispered into ears eager for connection. There is a fleeting warmth in these visions, a tender hope that flickers just beyond reach. But dawn always breaks too soon, and the letters remain locked away, their stories waiting in the quiet corners of her heart. Her pen pauses frequently. Hovering mid-air, she listens not for knocks or footsteps, but for the subtle shift when a letter feels complete. That moment is elusive, arriving not when all is said, but when enough has been spoken to fill the emptiness. She lays the quill down gently, stretching cramped fingers and inhaling the mingled scents of ink, wax, and winter air. The candle beside her flickers in approval, casting long shadows that dance like restless memories along the walls. Folding the letter with deliberate care, she smooths its creases with the backs of her hands, imprinting a final trace of tenderness. She writes his name across the top no surname, as always as though that single word alone contains the entirety of her love and longing. The letter remains unsealed, destined to join its companions in the drawer, where they lie like fragile relics beneath faded scarves and forgotten tokens. Perhaps one day they will be burned, their whispers turn to smoke and ash. Or perhaps the wind will carry them far from this small room, beyond the reach of loneliness. A sudden tapping interrupts the stillness, soft, rhythmic, like a heartbeat against the window pane. She looks up to see a slender branch brushing lightly against the glass, shivering in the night breeze. The candle is extinguished with a gentle breath, and the room dims, though the snow outside still glows faintly beneath the watchful moon. She slips beneath worn blankets, the chill of the sheets quickly replaced by the warmth of her presence. Her hand tingles still from the act of writing, a small but potent reminder of the words now alive between her fingers. In the quiet that follows, she feels no loneliness. The letter exists now, a presence shaped in shadow and light, a voice that asks for nothing but to be held. Some words are never meant to be spoken aloud. They are constellations hidden in the dark, visible only to those who dare to look away from the glare of day. They hold their shape in silence, delicate and enduring. And so the city sleeps on, wrapped in snow and secrets, while the letters sleep with it silent, waiting, never forgotten. Behind the heavy wooden shutters, swollen from years of weather and painted layers worn thin by the passage of time, the night settles with a weight that is both comforting and solemn. The shutters are pulled tightly closed, their thick panels blocking the bitter winter wind, but never fully silencing the whispers of the city outside. Through the cracks and warped edges, slivers of moonlight pierce like soft knives, tracing fragile patterns on the worn floorboards and casting long, trembling shadows that dance and dissolve with the flicker of candle flames. These shutters are more than protection. They are the guardians of privacy, the silent witnesses to lives that flicker quietly in the dark. Heavy curtains hang behind the shutters, their fabric thick and coarse homespun wool dyed in muted earth tones, faded now to soft grays and browns by the sun and smoke. They drape languidly over narrow window frames, cooling slightly on sills scarred with age. Their folds create deep shadows that seem to breathe, shifting imperceptibly with every breath of wind that slips past the cracks in the wood. Between these heavy drapes, the rooms within glow faintly with warm, golden light candlelight and hearth fire mingling in gentle embrace, softening the hardness of wooden beams and plaster walls. In one such room, the faint scent of beeswax and burning pine lingers, interwoven with the faint aroma of damp wool and the sharp tang of dried herbs hanging from a low rafter. A woman sits near the window, her posture still, but her eyes restless, tracing invisible lines on the glass as she watches snowflakes fall silently against the dark sky. Her hands are wrapped tightly around a worn shawl, fingers tracing the rough stitches as if seeking comfort in the familiar texture. The flickering candlelight dances across her face, illuminating the curve of her cheek and the subtle tremor of her lips as memories drift quietly through her mind. The city beyond the shutters is a muffled world of silence, snow blanketing rooftops and cobblestones alike, softening even the footsteps of the watchman who passes slowly along the street. Behind the thick curtains, however, life continues with hushed intimacy, the low murmur of whispered conversations, the rustle of fabric as garments are adjusted, the occasional clink of a spoon against an earthenware bowl. These sounds create a tapestry of presence, a gentle reminder that the night is not empty, but full of stories folded into shadows. A man sits hunched over a desk, cluttered with papers and inkpots, his brow furrowed as he copies painstaking lines by candlelight. His calloused fingers smudge the edges of the parchment, the result of long hours spent tracing the curves and loops of letters that carry the weight of business and survival. The fire's glow warms his back, but the chill from the window keeps the room tethered to the cold outside, reminding him of the fragile boundary between warmth and frost. Occasionally, his gaze lifts to the shuttered window, as if seeking reassurance or a sign from the silent night beyond. Behind the shutters, children lie curled beneath thick quilts, their breathing slow and steady in the warmth of their beds. Stuffed rag dolls, patched and faded, rest on pillows beside them, guardians of dreams and childhood innocence. The soft murmur of lullabies sung hours ago still seems to linger in the air, woven into the very fabric of the room. Outside, snowflakes drift in slow, lazy spirals, gathering silently on windowsills and ledges, weaving a veil of white that transforms the familiar into the mysterious. Sometimes the shutters are left slightly ajar, permitting slender shafts of moonlight to stretch across faded rugs and scarred wooden tables. In these narrow beams, dust motes float lazily, caught in the interplay of light and shadow like tiny dancers suspended in midair. The scent of burning tallow and damp earth mingle here, conjuring a sensory world that is both ancient and immediate, a sanctuary where the worries of the day fall away beneath the soft embrace of night. Each room behind the shutters tells a story of love held tight in stolen moments, of grief softened by quiet companionship, of plans whispered in shadowed corners, and promises made beneath the veil of darkness. The gentle rustle of curtains, the shifting of fabric against cold panes, is a lullaby for those who dwell within, a subtle cadence marking the passage of time and the steady rhythm of life beneath the snow. A candle is lit in a small kitchen, its flame steady and bright, casting a warm circle of light over a worn wooden table scattered with the remnants of evening. Meal crumbs of bread, a half-empty cup of tea, the faint scent of spiced cider lingering in the air. The flickering glow reveals hands busy with the mundane yet essential tasks of mending fabric, folding clothes, or scribbling notes that will not be sent. These small acts, carried out in silence and solitude, hold their own kind of sacredness in the hush of the night. Walls thick with plaster bear the imprints of countless years, mottled and cracked, their surfaces softened by time and smoke. The beams above creak softly as the house settles into the deep night, a slow, living pulse that echoes the steady beating of hearts within. These walls hold secrets too numerous to count, names scratched in haste, marks made in joy or sorrow, traces of lives woven into the very grain of the wood and stone. Whispers occasionally break the stillness, soft voices exchanged behind closed doors, the faint sigh of a breath drawn deep, the muted laughter of family members, sharing a moment of quiet joy. These sounds ripple gently through the rooms, a balm against the vast silence of the winter night. Behind the heavy curtains and shutters, these moments of connection are anchors in the endless dark. The curtains themselves seem alive, responding to the faintest breeze, their fabric shifting and rustling like the softest sighs. They frame the scenes within glimpses of hands pressed to windows, eyes watching snow fall, shoulders bowed beneath blankets. These are the invisible threads that connect the inhabitants to the night beyond, weaving a tapestry of presence and absence, light and shadow. Occasionally, a shutter rattles against its frame, a sudden percussion that breaks the quiet like a heartbeat in the stillness. The sound is at once startling and familiar, a reminder of the fragile barrier between the world inside and the cold, indifferent night without. Yet inside, life persists quiet, resilient, luminous in its own muted way. The glow of candlelight pools on scattered belongings, a leather-bound book with dog-eared pages, a cracked teacup, a spool of thread tangled in fabric. These small relics tell stories of daily survival and tender rituals, grounding the intangible emotions that stir in the dark. The night breathes softly around them, carrying the echoes of laughter, sorrow, and hope, folded carefully into every corner. As midnight deepens, the shadows grow longer and more fluid, the flickering flames casting moving patterns that weave stories on the walls. Behind the shutters and curtains, the night holds its breath, a living presence that watches over the city as it sleeps beneath blankets of snow. Here, in these hidden sanctuaries, life endures quiet, steady, and unbroken. The heavy wooden door of the tavern creaks open with a drawn-out groan, releasing a sharp breath of cold winter air that immediately melts into the warm, smoky embrace of the interior. The scent inside is thick and rich, the pungent aroma of burning pine logs mingling with spilled ale, faint traces of sea salt brought in by weary sailors, and the subtle, lingering sweetness of roasted chestnuts. Lanterns hang low from the sturdy beams overhead, their flickering amber flames casting dancing shadows across rough-hewn tables, scarred by decades of cups, knives, and whispered confessions. Each surface tells a story, worn smooth by the palms of countless patrons seeking refuge from the biting cold beyond. The murmur of voices weaves a dense tapestry of sound, a steady undercurrent punctuated by bursts of laughter, the clatter of mugs, and the occasional sharp bark of a hearty toast. The tavern is a sanctuary carved out of the winter night, where strangers become temporary companions, bound by the shared warmth of cider and rum and the delicate camaraderie that blooms in the glow of candlelight. The air hums with anticipation, a fragile energy that crackles like the fire in the hearth, transient yet vital. In a shadowed corner, a group of fishermen lean close together, their faces ruddy from cold and ale, eyes bright with the stories they exchange. They recount battles with tempestuous seas, the weight of nets heavy with the day's catch, and narrow escapes from icy waves that threaten to claim them. Their voices rise and fall rhythmically, like the undulating tide, punctuated by hearty slaps on tables and occasional raucous laughter that spills over into the room. Outside, snowflakes drift silently, but inside, the tavern pulses with life, a beacon of heat and noise amid the vast cold. At the bar, a solitary figure sits, hunched beneath the shadow of a wide-brimmed hat, nursing a cup of thick, bitter coffee that steams softly in the chilly air. His eyes are distant, flickering like candlelight themselves, reflecting memories and thoughts that seem to swirl as relentlessly as the snow outside. Around him, the bustle of the tavern seems muted a backdrop to the quiet tempest raging within. The soft clinking of mugs and the low hum of conversations form a kind of lullaby, steady and soothing amid the chaos of his thoughts. Near the hearth, a pair of young women whisper urgently, their voices low and laden with secrets. Fingers trace nervous patterns on the rough wooden table as their eyes dart toward the door, expecting or fearing a certain visitor. Their laughter is soft and fleeting, a fragile thread woven into the dense fabric of the night. Between sips of sweetened wine, they share dreams of escape and revolution, stories of forbidden love, and whispered plans that flutter like fragile sparks in the thickening darkness. The tavern keeper moves among the tables with practiced ease, his movements quiet but assured. His face is etched with years of laughter, hardship, and keen observation, and his eyes hold the unspoken knowledge of countless stories that have passed through his establishment. Though he rarely speaks of them aloud, his presence is a steady heartbeat in this living room of the city's night, a guardian of both silence and revelation. Musicians near the fire tune their instruments, the scrape of strings and breathy sighs of flutes weaving a gentle tension through the air. Soon, melodies will rise, ballads of lost loves and distant shores, songs that tell of homecomings and farewells, notes that fill the spaces between tailies, told over flickering candlelight. Music becomes a spell, binding strangers together in invisible threads of sound and sentiment, momentarily dissolving the barriers between them. The hearth crackles and pops, sending cascades of warmth through the crowded room, casting flickering patterns on faces both young and old. Each face is a story etched in firelight, weathered and hopeful, joyous and sorrowful, holding the quiet histories of lives lived amid hardship and resilience. Here, the past and present merge, stitched together by the common refuge found in the tavern's embrace. Outside, snowflakes gather on window panes, thickening the veil that separates the bustling interior from the frozen world beyond. For a brief moment, a hush falls, a silence pregnant with unspoken understanding. Eyes meet across tables, and fleeting glances carry volumes without a single word spoken. The tavern is more than a gathering place. It is a crucible of connection, a sanctuary where loneliness is held at bay by the gentle power of shared stories. Between whispered confidences and boisterous toasts, the tavern vibrates with the rhythms of life, laughter mingling with sighs, voices raised in celebration, tempered by murmurs of grief. Each sound is a thread woven into the rich fabric of community, binding hearts through moments of vulnerability and strength. The walls themselves seem to resonate with echoes of revelers long gone, their spirits entwined with those who now gather here. The air thickens with mingled scents of roasting meat, spilled ale, and damp woolen garments, a sensory mosaic that speaks of endurance and comfort. The low murmur of conversation blends seamlessly with the clatter of tankards and the occasional bark of a dog curled beneath a bench. Beyond the thick stone walls, the cold presses relentlessly, but inside, life flourishes in quiet defiance. A young man rises to share a tale, his voice steady but edged with nervous energy. He recounts a story of lost love and distant horizons, of heartache tempered by hope. Eyes widen and nod in empathy, and several raise their glasses in solemn salute to courage and memory. These stories flow freely here, carried on the warmth of human connection, and soothed by the balm of shared experience. Near the door, a couple leans close, their whispered words almost lost amid the hum of the room. Fingers entwined beneath the table, a small but fierce act of rebellion against the harshness of the outside world. They steal moments bathed in the soft glow of lantern light, the promise of dawn hanging fragilely on the edge of night. As the evening deepens, the tavern's light wanes, the candles burning low, shadows growing long and fluid. Yet within these walls, the heartbeat of the city's night remains unbroken, a constant thread weaving together the lives of those both ordinary and extraordinary. Here, in this refuge of flame and story, whispers are carried on breath and fire, promises made and broken, dreams nurtured beneath the watchful snow. In the profound stillness of a Boston night, wrapped in the soft blanket of freshly fallen snow, the world seems to hold its breath. Yet beneath this quiet veil, a subtle symphony of life unfolds in gentle whispers and muted motions. The rhythmic chirping of crickets threads softly through the chilled air, a delicate, almost hypnotic melody that weaves invisibly through narrow alleys, quiet rooms, and beneath creaking floorboards. Their song pulses with the slow, steady heartbeat of the earth, a fragile soundtrack to the night's embrace, inviting the mind to wander through moments of stillness and reflection. Slipping silently across the frost-covered cobblestones and weathered wooden porches, cats move like shadows given life, their graceful forms gliding through the darkness with practiced ease and innate secrecy. Their paws make no sound against the frozen ground, barely disturbing the powdery crust of snow beneath. Their eyes, luminous orbs catching every flicker of candlelight and moonbeam, glow softly like tiny lanterns, guiding them through the quiet labyrinth of streets and byways. Each movement is deliberate and fluid, a whispered dance of survival and instinct. Inside the warmth of colonial homes, the comforting crackle of firewood blends with the persistent chirping of crickets, creating a layered soundscape that is both soothing and alive. Cats find their places beside hearthstones, curling their bodies into tight, velvety spirals, fur shimmering gently in the amber light. Their breathing slows to a peaceful rhythm, matching the steady dance of flames as they rise and fall. These creatures embody calm and vigilance alike, guardians of solitude and companions in the long, quiet hours before dawn. The sharp, clean scent of wood smoke mingles with the earthy musk of whetstone and frozen soil outside, while inside the subtle aroma of fur and warmed blankets surrounds the feline watchers. Their whiskers twitch delicately as they listen to the faintest sounds, a distant rat scurrying behind walls, the flutter of a moth near a lantern's glow, the creak of an old timber settling. The night holds countless mysteries, and the cats, with their quiet wisdom, move between the worlds of shadow and light, ever alert to the unseen rhythms of the city. On a frost-lined windowsill, a sleek black cat stretches with languid grace, arching its back beneath the pale glow of the moon that filters through frosted panes. Its eyes narrow as it surveys the silent, snow-blanketed streets, catching the soft shimmer of ice on rooftops and the faint outline of bare branches swaying in the chill breeze. The cat's tail flicks once, a subtle signal in the stillness, before it settles again, its body molding to the curve of the sill, as if to become one with the night itself. Beneath floorboards and behind plaster walls, crickets continue their steady chorus, their tiny voices weaving through the hidden spaces of homes and taverns alike. Their chirping is a soft pulse beneath the city's slumber, marking the slow passage of hours with unwavering persistence. Though often unnoticed, these small musicians are vital threads in the fabric of nocturnal life, connecting moments and spaces with a delicate persistence that parallels the human heartbeat. The cats move through rooms with the silent poetry of shadow-soft pads against warm floorboards, the gentle brushing of tails against chair legs, the faint rustle of fur as they weave between furniture and sleeping bodies. They pause briefly at the foot of a restless sleeper, curling close to offer warmth and a silent presence, their bodies a comforting weight amid the silence. They are creatures of comfort and mystery, guardians of dreams and watchers of the night's secrets. Outside, in narrow alleys and behind stacked barrels, a tabby cat prowls beneath a swaying lantern, its striped fur blending into the interplay of light and shadow. It pauses to listen, ears twitching at the softest rustle, a mouse darting between crates, the faint shuffle of footsteps on packed snow. Its eyes gleam with the sharp intelligence of the hunt, yet there is a softness in its gaze, a connection to the quiet rhythms of the night beyond mere survival. Inside, the slow tick of a clock joins the night's symphony, blending with the steady breathing of cats nestled near the fire, and the ceaseless song of crickets hidden in the walls. Time seems to fold in upon itself here, moments stretching and contracting like the curling of a cat's tail. The night deepens into a velvet stillness that cradles the small lives within its grasp, sheltering them from the cold and the dark. In shadowed corners bathed in the gentle glow of tallow candles, cats yawn and stretch, their muscles rippling beneath thick, soft fur. Their tongues rasp gently as they groom, licking fur to a silky sheen in a ritual both calming and intimate. Eyes close briefly, lids fluttering in the warmth of hearthlight, yet their ears remain keen, attuned to every whisper and creak that might herald danger or change. The cricket's song threads on, weaving a delicate fabric of sound spun from earth and shadow. Their chirps echo from beneath floorboards, through the smallest cracks and crevices, a quiet anthem of life persisting in the darkest hours. This tiny chorus is both comfort and enigma, a reminder of the worlds layered beneath the city's visible surface. The cat's presence is both tangible and ethereal, their movements a dance of grace and mystery. They are companions to the lonely, guardians of the vulnerable, and keepers of secrets whispered in the quiet dark. Their eyes hold reflections of firelight and shadow, ancient wisdom and fleeting moments intertwined. Outside, the snow continues to fall in slow, soft spirals, muffling the world into a hushed dreamscape. The steady chirping of crickets and the lithe movements of cats create a delicate balance beneath the silence, threads of life weaving through the frozen night. These creatures embody the hidden pulse of the city, the quiet life that thrives beyond human sight and sound. As the night stretches on toward the deepest hours before dawn, the interplay of cats and crickets forms a subtle symphony, a dance of shadow and sound that cradles the city in gentle arms. Their presence is a quiet assurance, a whispered promise that even in the stillness, life endures mysterious, tender, and unbroken. In the profound
Beneath the still surface of Boston's snowy streets, where lantern light flickers and silence clings to rooftops like frost, 1,000 untold stories lie buried, dormant beneath layers of white. The city sleeps, yes, but it also remembers. The snow does not fall blindly. It coats the homes, the churches, the ships docked along the harbor, with the same quiet impartiality as it does the alleys where shadows trade secrets and silence carries meaning. It seals the night like a page being turned, yet some lines remain faintly legible beneath the print. Underneath the powdery crust, footprints left by hurried boots hours ago begin to soften at the edges, blurring intention, emotion, and memory. Was it a lover who ran through that alley, heart pounding with stolen affection? A rebel slipping messages beneath the tavern doors? A widow on her way home from a chapel, her prayers trailing behind her like smoke? The snow conceals these movements with tender precision, but does not erase them completely. Beneath the hush, the ground keeps a quiet record. The walls, too, seem to breathe more slowly now, holding within their wooden ribs the warmth of whispered conversations and long-forgotten names. Laughter muffled by plaster, arguments pressed between floorboards, longing absorbed into shutters and beams. Every house contains more than furniture, and fire it contains a pulse. A residue of life lived, of desire unspoken, of losses endured. These are the true occupants of Boston at night, shadows layered behind the living. Somewhere beneath a sagging rooftop, a letter lies hidden inside a hollow post. Its ink has begun to blur from a draft that seeps in along the grain. But its message, half hope, half confession, still rests there, untouched. The one it was meant for may never receive it, yet the snow fell the same upon both their homes tonight. There is something tender in that symmetry, as if the winter itself mourns all the things we cannot say in time. Farther down the lane, near the edge of the harbor, a ship moored in silence rocks against frozen water. Beneath her decks, a sailor dreams not of the sea, but of a woman he met on a Boston street corner in October. When the leaves had just begun to turn, her voice still echoes in his memory, faint and wind-carried. The snow blankets his vessel, tucks it in like a child, but beneath it, desire lingers like salt on skin. The harbor does not sleep easily. Children, too, have left behind their marks. It's not just snow angels and sled tracks, but small things. It's like marbles forgotten in the dirt near the fence, or a wooden whistle left by a lamppost. These are not accidents. They're messages in a different language, a quiet trust in tomorrow. And as the snow falls over them, it feels like a lullaby, gentle and exacting, saying, "Not yet forgotten." Behind certain doors, truths curl and settle like the last embers in a hearth. a candle snuffed out too quickly, a glance that lingered too long. A secret passed from hand to hand in the kitchen while bread baked in the oven, its scent now long gone but never truly erased. These details live beneath the snow like seeds, waiting for someone to notice, to name them again. Even the city's stones hold memories of hooves and gunpowder, of sermons shouted from courthouse steps, of hands raised not in prayer but in protest. Now they lie still under a soft white veil, but they have not forgotten the weight of blood, or of tears, or of the promises whispered between breaths during revolutions and betrayals. Boston's silence is not emptiness. It is memory held tightly. Sometimes a cat's paw will cross the snow and pause its body still, nose lifting toward a scent no human could notice. There is something here the cat seems to know. A tension, a warmth beneath the cold, perhaps a mouse, or perhaps a feeling. The crickets, quieter now, still chirp softly through the walls. They know as well that underneath this hush something stirs. A woman wakes from sleep in a small attic room, her hand pressed against the window pane. She does not know why she awoke. A dream, perhaps. Or the memory of a voice she hasn't heard in years. She watches the snow drift and shift in the wind. And for a moment, she feels she could remember something important if only she stayed awake a little longer. But the night does not give freely, or it only offers traces. A man standing by the fire downstairs feels the same pull. He walks to the mantel where a letter lies unopened, the seal still unbroken. He does not read it tonight, he never does. But he lifts it, runs his fingers along the edge and wonders. Some things are better left unread. Others demand to be understood. The snow offers no answer, only stillness. The wind picks up slightly, sending a soft flurry against the windows. It swirls through alleys and rooftops, lifting the corners of old posters nailed to tavern walls, rustling loose shingles, setting church bells to tremble faintly in their towers. Boston sighs, but does not wake. Her dreams continue, layered deep beneath the weight of snow and time. Somewhere, a tavern door creaks open, then slowly closes again. A man with ink-stained fingers steps out, breath steaming in the cold. He pauses, gazes upward, then slips a folded note into the crevice between two stones in the wall. He walks away without looking back. Minutes later, the snow covers the note, but not the meaning, not the memory. Secrets in Boston are not always whispered. Sometimes they are simply lived and left behind, held in the slope of a rooftop, in the soot on a chimney, in the footprints that curve away from a doorstep and never return. These stories are not lost. They are merely quiet. They wait beneath the snow, like breath beneath blankets, like songs unsung. And so the city sleeps, or seems to. But even in her most silent hour, Boston listens, Boston dreams. Beneath the cold, beneath the softness, beneath the snow, the night carries everything. Nothing is truly gone, only hidden. Beneath the still...
The first pale light of morning stretches softly across the snow-covered roofs of Boston, as if the sky itself were exhaling after a long, secretive night. Shadows begin to shift from blue to silver, and windows, once dark and inward-looking, catch the first glimmers of day. But the streets remain hushed, their stories still tucked beneath blankets of white, as though the city were reluctant to rise from its dreaming. Ashes and hearths are no longer warm, but they hold the shape of what once glowed curves of ember, soft edges of last night's fire. In kitchens and parlors, the faint scent of smoke lingers like memory. The bread has cooled. The letters remain unopened. Footsteps will come later, brooms sweeping, shutters opening, but for now, there is only this quiet between sleep and waking. The taverns are shuttered, the churches still locked. A cat leaps lightly from one rooftop to the next, a silent bridge between worlds. Somewhere, a bell tolls not loud, but clear, as if announcing not just the hour, but the continuity of time, of breath, of being. Boston turns slowly toward the light. In this fragile hour, it feels as though everything that happened during the night, each whisper, each glance, each unspoken desire might dissolve with the frost on the windows. And yet, it lingers. In your chest, in your breath, in the soft beat of your heart, as you listen to a world that has not fully woken. If you've stayed with me until now, thank you. You've walked through the alleys and rooms, the memories and dreams. You've felt the snow against the glass, the warmth behind shutters, the hush of letters never sent. I hope it brought you comfort, or perhaps quiet company, the kind that lingers long after the light has changed. If the weight of your eyes is heavier now, let it be. Let your body sink into rest, like the city sinks into snow. You are not alone. The stories, the streets, the soft breath of the night, they remain with you, folded gently into your sleep. And if this night's journey soothed you, or sparked a thought, or offered a moment's peace, I invite you to return again. There are more stories to tell, more lanterns to light, more dreams waiting in the corners of old cities and quiet hearts. For now, the candle has burned low, the ink has dried, the snow continues to fall, though the sun climbs higher. Boston breathes in silence, and you, dear listener, are part of its dreaming. Sleep well or wake gently. You are safe. You are home.